Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, starting a DEI's journey. Ready, set, go. My name is Amarachi Atanaya Igboegwu, and I'm a DEI strategist and an international facilitator. And in today's session, I'm going to be sharing with you some lived experiences, some key elements and steps to take when starting a DEI journey. And this is going to be based on my own experience, having also started a DEI movement in the organization I currently work for, which is the Norwegian Refugee Council. Now, the Norwegian Refugee Council is an international organization that's really focused on supporting and helping refugees and internally displaced people. I am in no way a spokesperson for the Norwegian Refugee Council. I'm only going to be sharing with you some of the steps I took to establish and also gain buy-in from senior management in terms of adopting a DEI framework for the organization. So, you ready? Let's go. So you may be thinking, I want to start a DEI. I want to start a DEI journey at the workplace or in my community or wherever where I'm currently working, right? This is a great thing you're thinking of doing. And if you're in that position, this is definitely going to help you. So just imagine for once, if you could just close your eyes for a moment and just think, what if you're working in an environment where different kinds of people, different works of life, people who are representing all the beautiful spectrum of humanity were embraced in their full authentic selves. Wouldn't that be amazing, right? And that's exactly what DEI does. The DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is a framework that engages organizations to help create the environment that allows people to be their authentic selves. It creates an environment that supports people, that sees people. It raises awareness, especially among leaders, to recognize the importance of belonging. And so when we talk about DEI, we're really trying to create an environment that really supports community. So DEI really is about building community, taking care of staff or employees, right? So in order to start this journey, which I took last year, actually, I was able to start this journey in an organizational setting. I had already worked in the academic field using DEI as a methodology, but last year I started working in a space that was more targeted to the humanitarian sector. And of course, we know that after the George Floyd murder and the Black Lives Matter movement, this really galvanized a lot of support around the world. And organizations, as well as corporate institutions, followed suit in denouncing all forms of oppression and recognizing racial inequities in the workplace as well as in society, and really stepping up to talk about how they plan to put into place DEI measures to ensure that belonging, diversity, and equity were really put as priority. And so if you're in that position and you're about to start the DEI journey, these are some things you need to think about. The first thing is you want to build a case, right? You want to build a DEI case that solves a problem. You need to understand what's in it for them, right? At the end of the day, organizations want to understand how DEI actually solves their problems, right? In my case, it was pretty easy to make the case. NRC is an organization that's 7,000 strong, right? And we cover all regions of the world. We're in the Middle East, we're in Asia, Latin America, in Central West Africa, and East Africa and Yemen. And these are the regions that we work in. And you can imagine we're working with such diverse people, right? And so it makes a lot of sense to be able to raise awareness around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to have leaders that protect and promote and support staff. So at the end of the day, we're able to provide services that meet the demands of our beneficiaries. And it's just not only focusing on the beneficiaries, but we also want to create an environment in the organization where people really feel connected, where people really feel seen, heard, and recognized. And so if you're in the process of starting your DEI journey, you want to build a case. You want to be able to solve a problem. At NRC, we want to be a great organization to work for. And we know that the only way to do that, or one of the ways to do that rather, is to ensure that we have an environment that really supports our staff, an environment that really promotes our staff, an environment that really does its best to ensure that people reach their full potential. And so that's the first step you want to take up. Now, once you've identified the gaps, once you've identified, how DEI solves your pain points in the organization, you want to then engage in a baseline study. You can conduct a baseline study, either hiring independent consultants, or maybe you have an R&D department in your organization. This would be a great opportunity to use this opportunity to figure out where are the gaps, right? So a baseline research study helps you understand how to really pinpoint those areas that need to be fixed. Maybe there's some gaps, in your organization. This is a great opportunity to itemize those gaps and help understand what the problems are. By conducting a baseline research study, you'll be able to do a better job of addressing the problems directly. Sometimes people try to jump the gun and then say, oh, I want to create a program, I want to run a workshop. That's the total wrong way to go about it. You want to, first of all, understand the problem. And understanding the problem starts by recognizing where the issues are, recognizing where the gaps are. And that's what the baseline study research, that's what a baseline research study will do. After conducting your baseline research study, the second thing you need to do is to, you guess, you want to share the results, right? Exactly. You want to share the findings. You want to call a town hall. So in our case, we were able to, after running a baseline study, we were able to share our findings through running town halls. Now, the main purpose of this was to be able to really share what we're doing, right? We wanted to make sure that people felt carried along. We also wanted to make people feel that, we wanted them to know that we really cared about what they had to say, or what they had to say. We wanted people to share their ideas, to respond to the findings, and to, also give us some input, right? This is extremely important to be able to show that the organization cares about what its staff or employees think, right? So this was the third step. First was to decide that was a problem and put a plan together to fix it. The second was to conduct a baseline research study. Third was to share the findings with staff, right? Now, you will be overwhelmed. I can assure you, you're going to be overwhelmed with so many different ideas. There'll be at least 10 different things that you'll have the research study would itemize to, as things to work on. And then you will have a lot of feedback from people, and they'll say, oh, I want you to do this, and I want you to act that. Now, this is a time for you to not get overwhelmed, okay? Don't get overwhelmed. Rather, hopefully you have a team working with you, because this is also something you can't do on your own. You're definitely going to have to reach out to people who are interested. In my case, I very early on was able to connect with people. I had people were recommended to me, and I was able to reach out and form a group of people from across, the organization at different, levels. And this really helped me and us actually in general. It's helped us to work together, and in working together, we're able to move the project forward. So you definitely want to be able to, get allyship within the organization. And so once you have this, then this would be a great time to tap into senior management, middle management, and staff who are invested in DEI in your organization. And what you'll be doing is trying to identify what are the key priorities. In our case, we ran a DEI stakeholders workshop. And in that workshop, we had to ask ourselves, how does DEI, or why does DEI matter to us? Right? We had a workshop with over 20 people, and we're asking the question, what does DEI mean to NRC? All right. And so we're able to identify that and then identify elements that could potentially hinder the implementation of DEI and enable DEI. So having the pros and cons and having all the different risk factors was extremely important in ensuring that, we had that all itemized. And after that, we're able to come down to about 3 main priorities for quick action. So in your case, I would strongly encourage you to think about identifying those top 3 or top 5 priorities for quick action, recognizing that DEI is a framework that is quite massive. And you can't think of it as a quick fix, right? You have to think of it as a journey, right? So when you have this mindset as DEI being a lifelong journey, then you're able to take those steps, little steps. So first of all, you start maybe, I don't know, depending on what your priorities are, you may start off with, hiring a global DEI lead or having the global DEI lead identify or reform the policies that guide the organization. Maybe it's the hiring policy. Maybe it's the promotional policy. Maybe it's talking about female leadership development, right? So the organization will have to determine, or whoever is in charge in your DEI project team will have to determine, what the priorities are, and then recognize that DEI is a journey. It's a process. Behavior change cannot happen automatically. Behavior change takes time. You have to recognize that behavior change, started from the behaviors and characteristics and thinking that we have has taken years and years to build up. So, and that's not going to disappear overnight, right? So what you're going to do is try to create the environment, maybe starting a conversation, maybe it's building or creating affinity groups or employee resource groups. All of these things will definitely help to start the conversation. And having the right attitude will go a long way in promoting that. Now, when I think about DEI, I want you to think about community, because really it's all about community. If you're starting a DEI journey and you recognize that in doing this, you're going to be taking care of your staff. Just imagine if people felt taken care of, if people felt valued, if people felt like they really counted. I mean, how would you feel if you felt like perhaps even at home, that you felt like you were worth something, like people, that your kids and your spouse, that they all felt like you counted, that they made you feel like you were worthy? How does that feel? Wouldn't that feel amazing? I hope you feel that way. In the workplace, it's the same thing. Imagine if your boss really appreciated you and you really felt that in your team, people really looked up to you or felt like you're a great member of the team. It just gives you so much energy. So when you're going to work, you're going to a very positive environment. You're going to a place that gives you energy and not saps you of energy, right? So when I think of DEI, I want you to think about building community. I want you to think about humanizing the workplace, because at the end of the day, it's really about building community. It's really about creating an environment that empowers people, that really engages the staff, right? It's about taking care of our staff, right? So start your DEI journey right now. Start thinking about how to build that community. And don't worry, you may have some issues down the line. It might be tricky in some places. It might get rough around the edges, but it's completely okay. Because guess what? At the end of the day, you'll be working towards building the foundation that will always put your staff first. So with that, a quick recap. The top things to think about when starting a DEI journey: 1, you want to build a case. You want to build a DEI case that solves a problem. 2, you want to engage in a baseline research study. What are the problems? You want to identify those problems. 3, you want to share the results. Tell people what has been found through the research study. What are some areas that need to be fixed? Get their feedback. Let them really recognize that you value what they have to say, right? And then remember that it is our journey, right? You want to get your priorities. You want to set up your priorities, And don't forget that it is a journey. It is not a quick fix. You're not going to solve all the problems at once. You're going to build one foundation after the other. And lastly, DEI is really about community. It's about bringing people together. It's about learning. It's about promoting that environment that really allows people to be themselves. So don't wait a moment longer. Go out there and humanize your workplace. Build your work community today. Thank you.